I've definitely gone over some pretty big rocks and logs, even in a ski resort parking lot, giant chunks of ice and 4-foot drifts of snow. You're like, I'll just plow through there until you realize it's a frozen ice blob. So I think more and more people are sort of pushing the van's limits and taking these things off-road.
You can't always control what's out there, but you can build for it. Today's the day we take Mike's van from road ready to adventure approved. Let's go.
Hey, there we go.
Welcome back to Mike's Van Build Podcast. I'm Jerem from Vanlife Outfitters, and today we're talking about everything that goes on the outside of Mike's van. These exterior mods are the difference between a van that just looks ready for travel and one that's actually built to handle the adventure. We're talking roof racks, solar panels, ladders, and the tires that keep it all rolling. If you're enjoying the ride so far, make sure to like and subscribe. Now, let's drop in on that conversation I had with Mike. Hi, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Jerem, how's it going?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
Let's get right into it. Today is really exciting for me. We're talking about exterior modifications. You had a lot done.
Yeah, I had a fair number of things. I don't think I did as many as I did with Willow, but I did definitely add some exterior mods to the van.
When people think about vans and exterior modifications, what do you think are the top couple of things that are on their mind?
Probably a roof rack, a spare tire carrier, maybe a spare tire carrier ladder combo, or just a ladder.
Right.
I think a lot of people might think about maybe some aftermarket tires and wheels, a suspension upgrade. I've noticed a lot of sprinters are doing, like nudge bars on the front and winches and things like that. I didn't go that far. And then there are some things that you probably wouldn't see, like, for example, I went with the Tech Vanlife skid plates underneath, an underbody protective exterior mod. I'm not sure if you'd call a bike rack an exterior mod, but unlike Willow, I did go with a exterior mod of a bike rack. I also went with a trailer hitch, which I think a lot of Mercedes are sold from the manufacturer with a trailer rack. My particular van didn't have one, so I had them put one on in anticipation of having a bike rack.
Well, the first thing that you mentioned when I asked about popularity was roof rack, and that's come up, at least your roof has come up in past episodes. So can you talk about the roof rack that you went with, and how does it fit in with all the things you mentioned
Right.
before, solar and air conditioner, etc.?
Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot of options out there. A lot of vans come with what they call the aftermarket roof rails, where they have mounting points on the roof if you wanted to put an awning and you didn't want to have a roof rack. If you look at the Vanlife Outfitters website, we have a couple of different roof rack options. And I think the beauty of most of those options is you're able to move the crossbars on the rack so as to accommodate your air conditioner, your Max fan, or your Starlink, or any other items. And I think a lot of the reasons the roof racks have become really popular is for the use of solar panels, to be able to have a nice mounting point for the solar panels.
Right.
It also cosmetically looks really nice. I mean, they look cool. And I think a lot of these exterior mods are useful. Whether that many people actually use them is a different story. But the beauty of Site 7 is they build their own roof racks. So when we discussed the fact that I wanted a certain air conditioner, they were able to check the dimensions of the air conditioner. The Starlink's a pretty standard size, so is the Max fan, and they put those in lots of different vans. So they were able to customize the cross members. They were able to customize where they put the solar panels. They included a light bar in the front. I think I mentioned that in one of our previous episodes. And it mounted directly on the roof using the mounting points of the van itself.
You've got a lot going on up there. Does this roof rack do anything else other than the providing a place for the Max fan, air conditioners, etc.
The solar
Do you
panels.
store anything out there? Do you store anything up there, or
No, there might be enough room if I wanted to put a duffel bag or two up there, but again, that's another initial concept behind a roof rack. I mean, the old VWs had an area in front of the pop top where you could put your luggage, kind of thing. So I think it's evolved over time from simply strapping things on there to actually having it as a location to permanently affix items on the van.
okay? So for the most part, that's how you use it. It
Yeah,
sounds like.
yeah. Now, some people,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt you, some people actually put decking up there, some sort of like weatherproof Trex
Yeah,
decking, and you'll see them at festivals with their lawn chairs up there. You know,
the very best view at Peace, Love, and Vans.
there
That's
you
for
go.
sure.
That's it.
You mentioned Starlink. That's increasingly a big deal for van folks.
Yeah.
Tell us any decisions you made about how to mount it or how to use it.
Yeah, I went with the Gen 3 Starlink. We don't at Vanlife Outfitters sell Starlink. I got it at Wally World. We do sell the actual mounting kits, which is basically a plastic frame that you put together, and you have like three different options of how you would like to mount it. With the metal roof, I went with the magnetic discs that mount to the underside of this frame, and they're
Okay.
very powerful magnets that attach directly to the roof. If you had a fiberglass roof, you could drill through. So there's a through bolting option, or you could actually stick metal discs on the roof, and then the magnetic feet underneath the frame on the Starlink would then attach to those metal discs. So the
Right.
easy mount. And as more and more people have been involved in van life, there's this whole dream of working remotely and off grid and all this kind of stuff. So it's actually quite necessary for me because as I travel, I want to continue to be able to engage with customers with van life outfitters. So I need a reliable source of Wi Fi. And then the other beauty of the magnets is if I was in a location where I was, maybe covered by trees and I looked at my Starlink app and it said, well, you need to move your dish somewhere. I can, with a lot of force, again, it's not easy, extract it from the roof. And I'm going to get an extension cord that I could put it down on the ground, plug it into the router in the van, and then relocate the dish so as to sort of maximize wherever that satellite is above my van so I can get the fastest internet going there
Okay.
in the world of Starlink.
Well, that sounds really handy. So
Yeah.
no holes, no cutting, just a really strong magnet.
Yep. And
And,
a simple plastic frame that goes around the dish that you purchase.
and if you've been doing the arm workouts at the gym, you can get it off of the van to move
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
else for
So I'm
better signal.
imagining, yeah, because I tried it on another person's van. Like, I can't move this. Let me have a look at that. And sure enough, it was a hump to lift it. And we were able to fortunately just shift it a little, and they had enough room on the roof. The one thing I would say is, the Starlink comes with a really long cord from the dish to the router. Don't cut that so it's nice and tight on the roof. Maybe coil up the access because I'm anticipating. I know Site 7 they did a really clean. It was just going to stay on the roof installation they were talking about. So I'm going to have to buy an aftermarket 50-foot lead so I can take it right off the roof. So
Got it.
I did not even think about that when I dropped that stuff off. And these guys do such nice, clean, concise work that it's going to be pretty much fixed. you know.
Got it. Okay. You mentioned a light bar. What exterior lights do you have?
Well, there's the light bar on the front, and then there's going to be a light on the passenger side rear panel, and I think they call them like a rigid scene light. It almost looks like a little half clamshell, and it just to give
Okay.
some light out. And then there's going to be a one on the driver's side rear door. Up above the window. So if you're working in the back there, you can open the door, but it's still mounted above the door to illuminate that whole area in the back. And just really simple, clean little, like I said, they almost look like little clamshells or a scene light is what they call it. So it's just going to illuminate, a nice space in front of that light or below the light.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, great. So lights for working. You mentioned working. What else might you use the lights for? Do you
Grilling
expect?
out. I come in from a
Okay.
bike ride at night and it's getting dark out. You can have one of those lights. You want to take a late night shower. You want to work on your bike when you get back, or you're getting ready to do a hike the next day. You're pulling out all your gear. I mean, I don't want to be lit up like a Christmas tree if I'm in a campground, but some places where I will camp, it's going to be dark. There's
Yeah.
not going to be street lights. So to have an option to be able to light up the area around you without using a headlamp. That was my go-to in the past. I just have a headlamp on. So
Okay.
yeah,
So it's while you're set up at your home at the
yeah,
site, being able to work and live in that area,
yeah.
not for off-roading in the dark.
I suppose the light bar could be used for that. Like I said in an earlier video, it lights up the, it's like you would be blind if you're standing in front of my van. So that might be as if you're going off road and it's getting dark out, you can see up ahead of what this off road might look like. And you have to decide, do I want to try and navigate that at night, or would I be better off waiting for the day?
Right.
you know?
Speaking of off-road, as more and more of these vans are being built or customized to
Yeah.
go off-road,
Yeah.
I understand that you've got some protection underneath as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I went with the Tech Vanlife skid plates, and there's one for the engine compartment and one for the differential. And I think part of that was motivated. One of my neighbors was a big off-roader, and I remember seeing his it's not even a Jeep. It was this rock crawler. And I was like, dude, what's all this stuff under? Why do you have those big plates? And he goes, do you see where I drive? And I was like, that's interesting, because there's been a couple times in my previous vans, I've been going to a trailhead in Moab. And like I said, when we talked about in a previous episode, having your spare tire on the back, there's 8-inch ruts and the road's like this, and you're not going to drop your spare tire. And so I'm like, I've definitely gone over some pretty big rocks and logs, even in a ski resort parking lot, giant chunks of ice and 4-foot drifts of snow. You're like, I'll just plow through there until you realize it's a frozen ice blob. So I think more and more people are sort of pushing the van's limits and taking these things off road. And I'm not going to be rock crawling, but I definitely know there's been times in the past where I'm like, when I hear as I'm driving down the road, I was like, oh no, what did I just hit? Like on Althea, there was like this floppy piece of metal under there protecting something. And I came out of a trailhead and it was all mangled. And I was like, oh man, if I was to hit something and all of a sudden there's oil spewing out. So the engine plate protects, the oil area, the power steering rack, and basically the subframe. So if I jammed up something and all of a sudden there's a fluid coming out and I can't steer, and of course the rear
Yeah.
differential, you know, once that's gone, you're done. And will a tow truck go back to where I'm done? And the fact that these things are so beautifully crafted, powder coated, painted, and they're corrosion resistant. I think the engine is an aluminum piece, and the differential is a piece of steel. So quick
Okay.
to mount them. It's like, if you know you're going to go off road, why wouldn't you use these? And they're actually relatively a decent price for something that could save you a lot of money. So when Vanlife Outfitters brought those onto our website as we're beginning to enhance our exterior mod offerings, I was like, giddy up, I'm going to get me some of those. And now I'll be that, I'm not going to be foolish, but I'll be that much more confident if I'm going on a road in one of the parks or wherever I go.
Well, I think I've mentioned that I'm new to Van Life Outfitters relatively, but I come from Jeeping. I've got a couple of Jeeps, and that's what I do for fun.
Yeah.
So that road that you mentioned, I want to go check it out
Yeah.
sometime. But yeah, I've got armor all up and down, underneath my Jeeps, because you do not want to get a rock hitting something
Well,
under
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
You'd be stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
Colorado, hopefully, that's what
There
I
you
love to.
go. Yeah.
But you mentioned Moab. I've left some pretty big dings on those
Yeah.
rocks. Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's one of the most challenging Jeep roads in the neighborhood that I used to live in Placer Valley. That on a weekend, these guys would show up trailering their Jeeps behind them, and they're going up stuff, waterfalls and teetering on giant rocks and stuff. And my neighbor, who's a big rock crawler, they'd all meet at his house and they just go off and I mean, stuff I'm walking my mountain bike past them because it was just ridiculous. So, not that I'll ever
Yeah,
take the van there, but it makes sense if you're going to try anything remotely off road where you unexpectedly don't see an obstacle or something, and yeah, you're a little safer than sorry.
right. Maybe especially if you aren't used to off-roading,
There you
you
go.
get a little extra protection if that's new for you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's come out from underneath the van and talk about the upside again. I think you mentioned in a previous episode that you have an awning. What awning are you adding, and why did you choose it?
The Fiamma F45S. I think it's probably the 10-foot long version. I think they all deploy to about 8 feet. I had that on Willow. I had that on Althea. Just a beautiful, easy to use. I went with a manual crank. They come motorized. I went with lights this time. I
Okay.
even had them mount some little places where you could put the feet against the van, or you can put the legs directly on the ground.
Oh, both, either.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
Okay.
there's been a couple times when they're on the ground, I can lean my bike up into it. But sometimes I'm like, but it'd be nice if those are tucked away and my front porch was a little more
Mm,
homey, you know. So the Fiammas are just, I think they're the kind of go-to awning you're going to see on probably
yeah.
8 or 9 out of 10 vans is going to have a Fiamma awning. If you want it motorized, if you want it, the Eagle version just kind of hovers out there in space, so it doesn't require to put the legs on the ground. So there's the F45S, the F80. Each awning has a different mounting arrangement and a different setup, whether it has legs or it doesn't have legs. Yeah,
And so you chose legs and manual.
yeah.
Can you tell us why you made those two decisions?
Less that could go wrong, probably.
Mm,
I've not, in the time I've worked at Van Life Outfitters, I've never had anybody say, my motor stopped, it won't deploy. The one thing I have heard, the ones that deploy that don't have legs, they have a wind sensor in them, and they'll automatically retract if the
oh,
awning detects some wind. And sometimes I think they've retracted a little prematurely, or it really wasn't that windy. And so it requires you can
mm,
adjust the wind sensor so it's not as
okay.
sensitive. I'd rather be responsible for winding it up or deploying it. And it takes all of 5 seconds. You put this little bar with a hook on it and crank it, out it
Yep.
comes, and it goes. And then the legs, just, I don't know, it just seems more stable to me.
Okay.
And you can also put some mounting plates over the feet of the legs. They make a plastic plate with some screw-in stakes, and so the option of being able to, excuse me, be able to mount it, attach it to the ground, seemed a little more secure to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. And especially, if there's a little wind and the thing is coming back, then it must be a little bit less stable. But
right.
I can imagine people saying, "Hey, I don't want the legs." So they, either way,
Yeah,
it's kind of personal
aesthetically,
preference. It
it's
sounds like.
yeah, aesthetically, it's nice without the legs. And if you're out on a hike and it gets windy, if you have the legs, it's hopefully still going to be there when you get back. But if the wind sensor picks it up, it retracts it, and you don't have to worry about it. So
Right.
there's good and bad with both, and I just
Yeah.
chose with the most simplistic version, I think, of the awning setup.
Let's talk about a less simplistic thing that you mentioned to me when we were getting ready for this talk. You've got a power step.
Yeah, yeah.
That sounds pretty cool. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's something that I had seen before, and I got more more acquainted with it with Site 7 because they use this step all the time. It's the AMP Research Power Step, and basically, we were under the van a few moments ago. We're going to go back under there. It's tucked up under the edge of the van, and when you open either the passenger door or the slider, it sort of disconnects some mechanism that allows the step. It probably connects the power somehow, that the step just comes down, and there it is. On the driver's side, you open the door, the step drops down, you step in. The minute you close the door, the driver's side retracts almost instantly. On the passenger side, which is probably 6 feet long, it actually pauses for a couple of seconds after the door closes, and then it's just drawn back up under the underside of the van. And when it's deployed at night, it has like purple lights that light it up, I've heard. So I'm excited to go out in the woods and see the
Nice.
purple lights on the step. Um,
Fancy.
yeah, because Willow had these ones that were there. They were permanent, and it definitely sort of impeded the clearance of the
Yeah.
van. And so Site 7, I said, why do you guys use that? And they said, well, it keeps really nice clearance, even though the Sprinter has a pretty decent amount of clearance to begin with. And we'll talk about a couple of the other mods I did in terms of the tires and the suspension. With the permanent steps, like I said, you're losing 4 to 6 inches of
Right.
clearance. I
Yeah.
can think the only detriment with the ones that deploy is some people want to put a water tank in certain areas underneath the side of their van, and I think there have been some instances where that if you put that step in, it might sort of take up the
Takes up some
space
space.
that you would
Mm.
normally be able to fit in a water tank. So that's something that could be a lesson learned by somebody that they did one thing and they realized after, oh man, now I've kind of messed that other piece up. So
Right.
I didn't have to worry about that, and the van definitely has a much uh, you know big stance without seeing the step there. There's some great clearance, and
Mm.
again for the off-road thing, whereas before you could maybe get over an 8-inch rock, now I could probably clear a 12-inch rock, or a boulder or a log or whatever. um,
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot more of those power steps
yeah,
on big trucks and
exactly.
Jeeps and some of them, maybe all of them, I don't know enough about them, but can also act as a rock. They call it a rock slide on the side there. Do you know if yours is okay if it gets bumped up against rocks as you're out there? You're probably not going over rocks big enough to hit it.
Yeah, probably not, but that's something I should probably look into. Again, yeah, I'm not really going four-wheeling per se, as much as I'm trying to access a remote campsite or a
Right.
trailhead or get out of a parking lot that's rutted with snow and mud and ice chunks.
I can't wait to see this van when it's done.
Yeah,
It's gonna be amazing.
yeah.
You mentioned tires and suspension. Let's talk about that quickly. What'd you do there?
I put some aftermarket tires on. I went with the Bridgestone KO3 AT all-terrain tires. I stayed with the same sort of general 16-inch. On Willow, I went with a 17-inch. I put different wheels. I kept the factory Mercedes wheels, which is something that Site 7 does. And initially, I didn't think they looked gnarly enough, but they actually are really nice. The steel wheels with the black hubcap. And Site 7 recommended the KO3. The previous van had the KO2s, which I think are just a little bit hardier. And so the KO3 is a little quieter on the road, but still has a nice tread pattern in the event you're in snow or ice or mud. I also went with a suspension upgrade. I did the same upgrade in Willow, which is the Van Compass 4.3. And that gives you some additional leaf springs, some adjustable Falcon shocks and struts, so you can fine tune the suspension. And for the most part, I mean, you're adding thousands of pounds to these vans, and with your build, with your electrical, your water, and so the aftermarket suspension, I think, is a logical idea or a good idea, not only for the up and down, but the sway. You're out on the open road, a gust of wind comes. So it definitely enhances the ride in the van. I think it makes it safer. And there is some additional lift, an inch and a half to 2 inches of lift. So again, it has that little sort of heftier looking stance. And I think sometimes, a lot of these aftermarket mods are aesthetically very pleasing as well as highly functional. However many people are going to use them in the way where they're designed, I don't know, but they work well and they really do make the van look nice too. you know.
Well, that's a good segue to the last topic I wanted to bring up because the back of the van can look just fantastic, done up the way it sounds
Yeah.
like you did it. Talk about what you've got back there.
Well, and again, unlike Willow, I simplified things on the. Well, actually, yeah, I simplified the spare tire carrier. I didn't use a tire carrier and a ladder. I just went with a very simple, clean ladder. I think that was Flatline Van Company, mounted to the driver's side rear door.
Okay.
Like I said, the Mercedes dealer, I had them put a trailer hitch and an actual additional step on the back. And unlike Willow, I went with a factory bike rack. And I went with a bike rack by a company called Rocky Mounts. And I think in the early days, Vanlife Outfitters did have those racks. But I don't think putting bike racks was that popular back then on the back of a van. And one of the things on Willow was I just wanted to have the bikes in the garage. And then I realized, I could get a bike rack and have both options. And the Rocky Mounts bike rack I went with, I think it's called the After Party bike rack. And the beauty is it carries two bikes. You can actually, it's called a swing away. You can pull the whole bike rack away with the bikes on it, almost like flush to the side of the van, and still access both the back doors. I can
Fantastic.
still pull out the tray. On Althea, I had a Thule bike rack that I had to take the bikes off every time I wanted to open the hatch.
Oh my.
So again, I'm going for ease and cush and comfort, and it's really nice that just to pull that thing. And one of these guys I met at a festival had one, and he's kind of what sold me on it. He's like, "Let me show you this," and then you can drop it at an angle so your bikes you can still open the
I've
door.
seen that.
And I was like, "Yeah, I've got to get me one of those." So I ordered one and had it delivered to Site 7. So it's going to be pretty exciting to put my bikes in there the first time and pull into wherever I'm going to camp and be like, "Oh, I can just do this and open the doors, take a shower."
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the list that we just went through is pretty long, but is there anything you wish you had done that you haven't yet?
I'm considering a nudge bar on the front. That I had one of those on Willow. You see them on, again, people have them on trucks. You see them on 18 wheelers. I think if you were coming in hot with a deer, it could maybe save you a few bucks in terms of the amount of damage that you would cause the front. Again, aesthetically, they're really nice. I didn't go with a winch. You see these sprinters and they look like tanks in the front with winches and stuff. And again, I wonder how often people are using these. But in the event you needed them, you got one. What else? They do some like around the wheel well, you can put some additional plastic pieces to make the wheel, protect stones flying up against the side of the van. But I think I have just the right amount. You got to have a ladder if you're going to have stuff on the roof, because if you have to go work on something, you got to get up there somehow. Trying to think if there's anything else. No, I think all in all, that's a nice list, as you said, that gives me the features that I wanted on the exterior of the van.
Yeah, and as we've talked about before, a theme of the podcast so far is experience. So you got to get in a van, you got to live in a van,
Yeah,
and you've lived in and used and camped many over the years, so you
yeah,
know what you want.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, let's move to our lessons learned section. You've talked about this a little bit throughout, but maybe summarize what are a couple of the main things that you learned going through the process of choosing which exterior modifications to go with.
Well, I continue to learn and think about how I plan to use the van and how I've used my van in the past. And again, it's a common question that gets asked when people call into Van Life Outfitters. My response is, well, how do you plan to use your van? I know for sure that I'm not going to be on the highway or a paved road all the time. It might get me to an area where I want to be, but then I'm going to be off the road. So fortunately, I haven't learned a terrible lesson in my own personal vans yet, which have prompted me now to get these parts.
Mm,
But I'm anticipating that, and I'm trying to plan ahead accordingly, so I don't learn a horrible lesson down the road. And I think also maybe less can be more. I think I went over the top on Willow. aesthetically, again, she was gorgeous. Nevi's going to be just as pretty, just as functional. I learned that there are some more sort of streamlined ideas of parts that you can get. You don't have to go full tilt boogie on everything. And if down the road you realize, maybe I do need a winch, you can always add one. Or, maybe I could put some deck boards on the roof rack and put a lawn chair up there. I do.
Maybe I need a winch is a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah.
Luckily,
Yeah.
luckily, I've always had one when
Right.
I was stuck in mud or whatever.
Yeah, or it could be I could have helped that person if I had a winch. That's
Learn it
probably
that way. Learn it that way.
that's probably
Yeah.
optimal in that
Learn
setting.
from somebody else.
And,
Yeah.
and I've definitely learned that exterior lighting is helpful. Is nothing worse than rummaging through your duffel bag to find something
Yeah.
with a headlamp or a mag light in your mouth, trying to figure out where stuff is, or you're cooking food and you've got a flashlight, under your arm kind of thing as you're, flipping chicken. Yeah. And what else would I say I've learned? That there's a lot of options. That's the other thing. There's just, there's a lot more companies manufacturing parts for exteriors of these vans. And once you sort of pinpoint a certain style or, a certain attachment method, that might dictate what you choose. Like I said, the racks we have on Vanlife Outfitters, the luxury of having to select the number of crossbars on the roof rack and whether there's two up here and there's a big space here, so knowing what you're going to have on the roof is really helpful. Knowing where you're going to drive is helpful. And so, yeah, that's been a luxury for me that, like you said, I've gone out and done some things that have led me to, yeah, this is what I'm going to go with on this van. And I just have to be cognizant now that if I'm off road and I get a flat, I got to hope that I'm not in a giant rutted road and I can still drop my spare tire.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, it sounds just utterly fantastic. I can't wait to see it. We're just a few episodes away, just a few weeks away
Yeah.
from actually seeing the final product. So I can't wait.
Well, here's one last thing. Here's the beauty of a roof rack. You can put all the stuff you want on the roof.
There you go. But I listened closely, and I think you said you've got room for one duffel bag.
That's right.
So
yeah, and I would prefer to have the stuff in the van for the most part.
Yeah.
But I don't want to look like I'm the Beverly Hillbillies there with everything I own on the roof.
I've been meaning to show my kids the Beverly Hillbillies. That's a good reminder.
There you go.
Well, Mike, really appreciate you taking this time.
Absolutely.
It's a blast for me, and I hope the audience is enjoying it as well. All the best, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jerem.
Thank you. Now that the outside of Mike's van is built for adventure, it's time to turn our attention back inside. The next phase is all about comfort, style, and making a space that feels like a true home on wheels. In episode 8, we get to talk to Mike's better half, Amy, and hear her perspective on what makes a van feel livable, cozy, and hers as much as his. Thanks for listening to episode 7 of Mike's Van Build Podcast. Photos, links, and product info from this episode are all up at vanlifeoutfitters.com/podcast. Subscribe, tell a friend, and stay tuned for more build stories. I'm Jerem with Vanlife Outfitters. We'll see you in episode 8.